host of the show, Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. And today, I have the privilege and honour of finding about the man behind the politician. Today, I have the Minister of Finance for Ireland and President of Eurogroup, Paschal Donohoe. Paschal, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Doug.
It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on. I know a little bit about you. Obviously, we've got connections outside of work, and everybody I've spoken to says great things. So I'm really grateful to be able to get to know you as such. And I know a little bit about you, but one of the questions I love asking is when I was 10 years of age, I'm a big football fan, which I believe you are as well.
Indeed, yes.
And when I was 10 years of age, I had a passion about football, and I wanted to, as a job, to become a football manager like Alex Ferguson. And I'd love to know, I'm sure politics wasn't your first choice as a 10-year-old. What did you want to do as a 10-year-old?
So as a 10-year-old, insofar as having a clear idea of what I wanted to do then, I was probably thinking about being a writer. So one of my great loves, which is with me to this day, is reading. I couldn't imagine life without books. And back then, that was also beginning to influence me in thinking about writing and actually writing. I was a little later in life, began to write short stories. So I got a few of them published, and I thought I was going to go in that kind of creative direction. But other things happened to me, and here I am many, many years later with whatever creative energies are available to me being poured into a life in politics and my work as a Minister for Finance.
Oh, I love that. Obviously being a writer as well. I absolutely love that. And I know that. We'll talk about that later on in terms of books, because I know you do a lot of reviews of books in different newspapers and on radio as well. But I'd love to get to know a little bit about you. Obviously, you're one of the leading politicians now in Ireland. But I believe that before you became a politician, you had a little bit of a snippet of doing some nappy sales yourself, if I'm correct.
So before I started off in politics, I worked for many years for a fantastic company called Procter & Gamble. And I started off working with them in sales. They're a consumer goods company. And in the early years of my career with them, I sold nearly everything they make. So from Pampers to Pantene shampoo to Dav's washing powder, the whole gamut of consumer goods. I was involved in selling them to various customers and retailers in the UK and then in Ireland. And I started off my working life in the mid-1990s, traveling around places like Birmingham and London, actually selling nappies, selling fairy washing up liquid. And it was the making of me, because I went from life as a student to in the front line of what commerce looks like. And I loved it. And worked with them for nearly 10 years. And at the end of all of that, then decided I wanted to do something very different. And that began the journey that has the two of us now here in this room in the Department of Finance.
I love that. And what was the transition that took you from, because you were a sales director, if I remember correctly, of Procter & Gamble. What took you from being a sales director of Procter & Gamble to then coming back to Ireland to become a politician?
So when I was in college, I studied economics and politics. And I studied those for lots of different reasons. My interest for those subjects was driven by history, driven by finding parts of those subjects really enjoyable and engaging. But it left a lingering imprint on me about understanding the importance of politics and how political decisions are very much at the heart of very big things that happen, not only obviously in democracies, but also in economies. And then through the work that I did for Procter & Gamble, I enjoyed so much and still love it to this day. Work that you do, engaging with, influencing, persuading people, which obviously is a huge part of being a politician. And all of those things began to come together to have me thinking about becoming a politician. My mum and dad brought me up in a way that really made me think about the responsibilities that you have towards other people, towards your community, towards the country that you live in. And all of those different instincts came together as the global financial crisis began to develop, and it began to have the awful effect that it did in Ireland and on Ireland. And that set me on the path towards becoming a councillor and then ultimately a member of the Oireachtas. And now then for a number of years, I've been very lucky to hold offices within government, including the work I do now focused on finance and our economy.
I love that. And we have quite a lot of connections because I know you did BES, Business
Yep.
Economics and Social Studies in Trinity, which actually my cousin was in your same year at the same time, and a few of my friends as well. And they all said you're a great guy as well. And what, in terms of, you mentioned it briefly there,
Yeah.
I always say in a lot of my speeches that emotional intelligence is one of the most important things of leaders in terms of self-awareness, conscious communication, empathy, compassion, kindness, and also kind of a self-motivation. What do you think of your past job at Procter and Gamble, maybe your parenting from your parents, and other kind of skills in terms of mindset you might utilize that you think have been really useful in the past to help you in your current role now?
Well, in particular, I don't think, and I'm convinced I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done in politics if it hadn't been for my time in Procter and Gamble, because the years I spent with them allowed me to understand and acquire and be taught many different skills and many ways of organizing yourself and those who you work with in a commercial organization and in a really big organization like Procter and Gamble. And that in turn allowed me to think a lot about how you set priorities, how you work with people to deliver those priorities. And they were of help in ultimately trying to get into the Dáil, but they became absolutely indispensable in the work now that I've done as a member of the Government of Ireland. Because the work that I had done in Procter & Gamble, of being in a team, of being responsible for a team, of trying to lead one, and then all my experience of having to work within very big organizations gave me lots of valuable insights and learnings for life then, being in government and working within a government. So I'm hugely indebted to that experience that I had in P&G. And the more the years go by, the fonder I think of my time there, and the more grateful I am for the start in my professional life that that company gave me.
I love that. And I know one of your big hobbies, obviously you mentioned at the start, is reading
Yeah,
and writing.
yeah.
And I know you've read so many different books, I've listened to other podcasts and everything like that. In terms of non-fiction, what would you say as being the most impactful books that have helped you both in life and in leadership in terms of what you do?
In terms of life, I'll briefly identify two. The first one is an autobiography of a British Labour politician called Denis Healey. And he was, as you know, a Labour Chancellor for the Exchequer, Labour Secretary Defence, at a time of great upheaval in the security of the world, and also with many challenges for different economies at that point. And he wrote an amazing book called The Time of My Life. And that was about the experiences that took him from World War II to being a member of Attlee's Labour Party, all the way up to being a very hard-nosed, hard-headed Chancellor of the Exchequer. And that book gave me a real sense of the life of politicians, what politics is about and what really matters. But it also gave me an appreciation of the wide range of experiences that somebody like Denis Healey had, which is why my advice to aspiring politicians always is to do lots of other things before you try to become a politician. And then the most recent book that I go back to again and again is a book called On Tyranny by an academic called Timothy Snyder, who works in Yale, works in Austria. And his book is about the learnings and wisdom of how you can spot when democracies get into difficulty. And it's a really short book. I think he's the George Orwell of our time. And I recommend it to everybody. I normally have a few copies around because I give it out to people all the time, but I've given away all my copies, Doug, so I'll have to buy a few more for the next time I meet you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to get that afterwards myself.
Yeah.
And any other ones in terms of, that sounds kind of business orientated, anything to do with more life, as in outside of work?
Well, I spend an awful lot of time watching sport and reading about sport. A lot of time reading history as well. And as I've got a little older, I've learned more from reading about and thinking about sport and other passages of history that in turn have really helped me with being a politician and some of the challenges of today. And for those who really devote themselves in either a voluntary way or a professional way to sport and to competitive processes in sport, there are insights in that that I find very helpful for then the work that I do as a politician. So even though I do read a fair bit about politics, I'm reminded of all I need to learn, and I'm reminded of what I can learn actually when I read about things that are not about politics. Yeah. And I'd have to put sport nearly at the top of that list.
I totally agree. I did a speech last week at a conference, and I was saying, because I used to play National League hockey, and it's amazing how in sport you have a sense of purpose every week. You have goals set towards what you're trying to achieve. You train hard every day, and you mastermind, and you visualize, and you talk with your competitors. And quite often we don't do that in business. So we can learn so much for what we do in sport and take that into the team play that we have within business as well. So I love that.
Absolutely. And there's much that sport teaches you about mindset, about resilience, about the importance of what to focus on, that has some transferability, would you believe, into the world of politics.
Yeah.
And it has always helped me, for example, when I'm in the final phases of doing a budget, to go to Croke Park and watch, of course, the Dubs play and watch the culture around them and how they think about excelling. And that is an ingredient in how you can deal with an exceptionally competitive and at times volatile environment in politics as well. So as I said, even though I do spend a lot of time having to read books and articles and papers about politics, I do find as life goes on, you learn more about how to do politics from reading very different things.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned there about mindset and resilience, and I'm sure like me, I mean, you've had a very successful career, but that road to success always isn't a straight line. There's a bit of ups and downs, cul-de-sacs, back to fronts. What would you say in terms of your career and life has at the time seemed like the biggest failure, the most distraught thing that's ever happened to you, but now that you look back at it, it was one of the best lessons in life or leadership that you ever had?
My early attempts to get elected to the Dáil, which weren't successful. I got elected to the Dáil on the third occasion, and particularly after I attempted to become a TD in 2007, and I wasn't successful, and all my peers and friends and colleagues were. I learned a huge amount from that period between 2007 and 2011 about the need to keep going, the need to learn from things that don't work out in the way you hope. And that then has proved to be of huge value to me later in life and later in my career, when you have to deal with an awful lot more challenges and difficulties, which makes the successes that you achieve all the sweeter and all the more important. So definitely the period of time in which I couldn't get elected to the Dáil, I just couldn't get that win in a general election and then in a by-election, in retrospect, are experiences that have really, really stood to me. And I can see now a path that was needed, that I went on, that's helped a lot with other parts of my career.
Yeah, I know. And in terms of your career, I have to say, I follow you on social media, and the amount of work you do. I heard another podcast, so you get up at 8 o'clock, you don't finish till 11 sometimes, which is phenomenal.
I get up slightly earlier than 8, I should say.
Sorry, you start working at 8 o'clock. Sorry.
If I was to get up at 8, Doug, I'm sure it would raise some eyebrows. I'm sure if the Taoiseach or Taoiseach saw that, they'd think, God, we expect them to be up a lot earlier than that, and not just the people of Dublin Central. But no, it is. It's a fantastically demanding life as being a politician in any way, but those demands are an intrinsic consequence of how important the work is. And whether you're a TD or a councillor trying to deal with issues that matter to a constituent, though the demands come from how important the work is. And that then is the same if you're a member of government and if you hold office on behalf of a country. And I am incredibly lucky to have worked with many government departments over the years that are full of incredibly committed public servants who want to do the right thing for Ireland. And then I've had a close team of those civil servants and others who have advised me without whom I absolutely would not be able to do the work that I do. And I very much see myself depending on them, standing on their shoulders and all the work they do, and me working to direct it and try and send it in the right direction and make the case for it, has been at the heart of what you have to do, particularly in a political career if you're a government minister.
Yeah, and you seem to love what you do as well, from what I can see, with the passion and purpose that you put into it. Outside of work, who is Paschal Donohoe? What do you do in terms of hobbies? What really lights you up? What gives you joy in your life?
Lots and lots and lots of things. I am incredibly lucky with the support I get from my family and all the fun they give to me, and all the support they give to me that helps me do my work. Very lucky to have had many friends who've nothing to do with politics, who are still friends with somebody who doesn't always have enough time to devote to friendship, and they're very understanding of that, and always are there for me. But beyond all of that, I'm a mad reader. I'm reading. I always have at least a couple of books with me, and that is fantastic for entertainment, for looking after my soul, for helping me be more attentive to the world.
Mm.
Adore sport. I can't imagine a weekend without having the radio on in the background, listening to whatever sport is on. And then I've been an avid an avid gig goer all my life. So lots of things outside of politics. And if I didn't have all of those things, I wouldn't be able to work the way I do, and wouldn't be able to uh, do what I'm meant to do in the office that I hold. And I look after my weekends very carefully. I look after time outside of politics as carefully as I can too, because the person is the politician, but there is more to the politician than just the politician. Mm. And being aware of that is something I've had to learn.
I love that. And I know you're a Spurs fan.
I am.
Favorite player, Robbie Keane, or?
So I've had so many over the years. Gareth Bale is still a player who brought to life for me all that Spurs was about. Of course, Robbie Keane in his time in Spurs. And I look at the team that we have and what went before. I look at Son, I look at Romero, I look at Mickey Van de Ven, and all of these are players and people that have a really, really big impact on my weekend and how I feel, because I follow it so much and I enjoy it so much. And it is just a great interest to have. I know supporting other clubs has brought far more successes to other fans of soccer, but I remain convinced that the great days for Spurs are just around the corner. And we've got a big game against Frankfurt now in a few weeks' time in the Europa Cup, which I will be looking forward to greatly.
GA at the weekend, a really good Dublin match, or a Tottenham game, which would be your preference?
God, that is a fantastic question. I would probably pick something a little different. So I would have to pick an Afina game. So Afina are my local GAA club. And I have to say, I find that combination of supporting something that's really local to you, which in my case would be Nafina or then Bowes. I find being able to do that regularly is kind of the best sport can offer you.
Yeah.
I can only go to a Spurs game very rarely. Whenever I do see them, it's therefore on the telly, which is always great. But that experience of being in your local community, local environment, supporting something that's really local to you is really rare in sport, and it's great, and something that I look forward to most weekends when it's on.
I love that. And I interviewed Brian Fenton, obviously from Dublin, and he does the same. He goes back to Raheny all the time to look after the
and it's something that's very specific to the GAA, that combination of being really local, highly voluntary, and people being on the team and on the pitch in front of you who you know, that it's really quite rare. So I think that's out of this world and great to be able to do it.
I love that. And you're the same age as me, and I looked you up, you're about, I think you're 2 months younger. And obviously we've gone through a lot of experience in life, and you've been incredibly successful, and you've got a lovely family. If you go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give that younger man?
God, I tell you, if I was appear in front of my 18-year-old self, I would be telling them just to enjoy what is to come, and that there is always going to be ups and downs, but the downs and the challenges are also where you learn an awful lot. And I would be full of encouragement to make the most of life, which I have tried to do. But I think for those who are a lot younger and beginning their journey in life, particularly in the world we're in at the moment, it's so easy to be weighed down by the many difficult challenges and issues that we have. But there are so many great things that can await young people at the moment, and so many great opportunities through education and through work and through travel, that there's so many positive and good experiences that are there.
You made a speech, I think it was in 2018, about parenting. It's something that I'm quite passionate about myself. If you were to kind of give advice to dads out there today in terms of with this busy world of social media and everything like that, what do you think we need to be really instilling in our children in terms of values now?
So I wouldn't consider myself at all qualified to be able to give advice to parents about much, because as parents, I think every parenting experience you have is very particular to your own family. And I'm like any parent, just trying to do my best by those you love and to keep everything else on the road. But we do have so many reminders at the moment regarding the need for us to try to build resilience up in our daughters and sons, and to instill in them tools and qualities that could be of help in dealing with the world and in how the world presents itself to them through their friends, and also obviously increasingly through their phones. So like any parent, that's something that you have to think about and be very, very aware of. But I think I have that in common with any dad or mom at the moment.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I've been through it myself. And in terms of your own mental health, and you work so hard, and working from starting at 8 a.m. and finishing at 11 p.m., that can't be easy. How do you, because you look fit, you look healthy, you look great. So how do you manage your mindset, your mental health, and your energy to be able to perform at the level that you do?
Again, it's really a function of those who I work with, who really help me so much in each day and in the work that I need to do. So having a kind of a team environment and a team that help you with your purpose and with your very varying priorities that every day, every week can bring with us. In terms of beyond that, my biggest job each year is to deliver a budget. But the other budget that's really important to me is the budget of my own time and the budget of my own energy. And being very careful about where you allocate that to and how you use it. And that's something that I am aware of. And it does go back then to some of the earlier questions that you asked me about how do you renew all of that. And it is then through the interests you have in life, through your personal life, helps replenish that particular personal budget when it needs replenishing. But as I said, I would just go back to those who I work with, who allow me to do my work and do that throughout the day and over the year.
So no cold plunges or anything like that in terms of anything in the
I'm
morning?
as far away from that as you can possibly manage, Doug. Very much so. That's for others, I'm afraid.
Yeah, my son does it all the time. It's funny, especially when he has the cold shower and he leaves it on afterwards and you go in. In terms of the future, imagine I put you on a stage in 95 years of age in front of 10,000 people, and we beam it out to the 8 billion people on the planet. And it was your legacy speech. So all of these interviews, everything about you's gone, and you've got one message to leave to inspire the world. What would that message be?
Well, I'm absolutely certain that those many billions of people who might be looking at all the different things they could watch, the last thing they'd want to look is what I'm going to say to them. And I'm far too much ahead of me that I want to do, and I hope enough left in life for it to be very early for me to be thinking about what a legacy could look like. Because both in my work in politics and then in life outside of politics, there's so much that's yet to do. And I think that what that legacy will be is really for others to think about, if they're minded to do so, and to write about or analyse. All I can think about is what I try to do today as opposed to what I might do in the future, which is to give of your best. I'm a public servant. The people of Dublin Central elect me. It's through their electing me that I can then serve the people of Ireland. And it's doing that work as well as I can each day, and being really focused on what is the balance between the needs and issues of today and the needs and issues that could be around the corner for us, that yet await, and trying to get that balance right, which is a particular dimension of my work as Minister for Finance, and it is what the role of a government is really important to doing. So that's what I put all my time against, and hopefully there's lots still awaiting that in turn will lead to what a legacy could look like.
Lovely. And one of the podcasts I heard said that you don't see yourself doing politics forever.
Nope.
And I did ask you at the start, and I'll finish with this question, which kind of interlinks in, is now that you've done the politics, and maybe in the future, say money wasn't a problem and you had to do something else, and it was all about purpose and passion, what would you do?
I'd want to go back to college, and I want to go back and study English, and go back to that great love earlier in life. I'd want to go back and to be able to read, not just for pleasure, but also for purpose, and to be able to enjoy other minds with a bit more time and enjoy being in their company. That's what I'd want to do.
I love that. And could we maybe expect at some stage a book?
Yes, but I won't be writing memoirs or an autobiography or anything like that, because I think there are other things to write about and think about. So I have two reasonably good ideas for two different books, and I hope I'll get to one of them.
Can you share them?
Still work in progress, even the thinking about them. And I don't have obviously the time to be writing them or advancing them at the moment. But yeah, I've thought a lot about the way we conduct politics at the moment, and have some thoughts in relation to that. And then Europe, Ireland's relationship with Europe, and how that could evolve in the future is another very important theme for me. So I'm glad to be able to give you some good news. These books will be short. They won't be particularly lengthy or very demanding volumes. And when I get to write them, will be all about trying to tell, I hope, a clear story about where we have been and where politics has been and where it could go to. But all that is for another day. There's too much to be doing at the moment. I'm trying to make the time to read books at the moment, which thankfully I can still do. The time to write books is, I hope, still a fair bit away.
Well, when that day does come, I'm going to buy your book, and I look forward to it.
You've got to get to On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder first.
Definitely.
And get The Time of My Life. They're the books to begin with, not anything I'm going to do.
Definitely. Paschal, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Thank you now.
My name's Doug Gordon, and you've been listening to Paschal Donohoe on Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. I'll be back next week with another inspirational guest. If you need to get in touch, contact me at dougdgordon.com.